After a long wait, welcome back to the Gamer's Garden, and I've got a new cult classic video for you. Now, cast your mind back to the early 90s. It's Sega versus Nintendo, the SNES versus the Mega Drive. In the 4th Gen wars, platform exclusives were essential. Nintendo were king, but Sega became the maverick upstart, putting 2 fingers up to the competition. This ambition led them down a fatal path with the release of the Sega 32X in late '94. The 32-bit Mega Drive upgrade infamously became the starting point of Sega's slow and painful demise throughout the decade, but this episode of Cult Classics looks at a fantastic port on the system of an underrated Sega arcade classic, Virtua Racing Deluxe. When Nintendo released the Super FX-powered Star Fox in early '93, Sega needed an answer for their aging Mega Drive. They hit back in March '94 with a port of their Model 1 arcade hit Virtua Racing, handled by the original's dev team, the legendary AM2, and using the power of their new graphics processor, SVP chip. The SVP chip demonstrated Sega's technical prowess once again, but proved too expensive to be a Star Fox level success. Yet Sega were convinced that bringing their 3D arcade games home was the future. So in one of the stranger moves in video game history, Sega of America released a 32-bit upgrade for the Mega Drive in time for Christmas '94. It's well documented what a disaster this was for Sega, but one game still stands out as a great title in its own right, an upgraded, definitive port of AM2's pioneering game, Virtua Racing Deluxe. This deluxe version of Virtua Racing plays fantastically and is a far smoother and more enjoyable experience than the already solid Mega Drive port. The feature set is incredible for the time, with 3 cars, 5 tracks, a mirror mode, 4 different viewpoints, a 2-player mode and even action replays. The new cars and tracks in this version fit perfectly with the originals, and this makes for a pleasantly complete 3D racing game, considering how early it arrived. These additions are a welcome inclusion that make the game more than just a visual upgrade. But the main selling point of the 32X was of course the visual upgrade, and Deluxe is a clear step above the Mega Drive port. There's a higher polygon count, a higher frame rate and very little dithering artifacts in the colours, although it's still apparent in the transparency effects like many Saturn games that came later. The resolution is similar to the Mega Drive version, but the increased number and stability of the polygons gives the impression of a much sharper image overall. Side by side, the Mega Drive version holds up pretty well. There's no mistaking the difference, but it's a testament to the SVP chip and AM2's programming that it plays as smoothly as it does. The improved frame rate in Deluxe is probably the best addition. This is of course from a time when any kind of 3D was a selling point, whatever the frame rate, and for a short amount of time, these graphics were about as good as you could get on a home console. Where lots of early 3D games have drifted towards unplayability due to shaky polygons and erratic frame rates, VR Deluxe has a level of polish and timeless arcade gameplay that stand it closer to contemporaries like Daytona USA and Ridge Racer. It still feels more like a proof of concept than either of those games, but then the original Virtua Racing was exactly that, an early technical demonstration spun out by AM2 into its first big 3D game. From this starting point, you can see the beginning of Sega's entire 90s arcade style. Bright colours, chunky polygons and smooth frame rates. So Virtua Racing Deluxe isn't just the definitive release of Virtua Racing, it's a time capsule of Sega's 3D games in their infancy. It sold well at release, but 32X sales stalled immediately afterwards, and what was supposed to extend the Mega Drive's life instead brought it to a sour end, and a handful of games, including this one, wouldn't receive the recognition they deserved because of it. AM2 went on to develop a sensational 32X port of Virtua Fighter, as well as conversions of Space Harrier and Afterburner, before leaving the system to concentrate on the Sega Saturn. Virtua Racing received another port for the Saturn, but this was handled by Time Warner and was not well received at all. The only way to play Virtua Racing Deluxe today, aside from emulation, is to track down an original copy and play it on a 32X, which is beyond what many gamers are willing to try, and this only adds to the game's sense of obscurity. And while it has never been as loved as Virtua Fighter, Daytona USA and Sega Rally, it's where Sega's 90s hot streak started, and this obscure deluxe port on an ignored system is still the best way to enjoy the game at home. Let me know if you've enjoyed this video and if you think Virtua Racing Deluxe deserves the label of cult classic. Check out some of my other videos from the Gamers Garden, and until the next time, happy gaming.